Hello everyone, my name is Martin and I'm the Director of Marketing at Evolven, and I'll be your host for this session. Well, I'm happy to have on today's session our guest customer, Dave Chivers from the VSE Corporation, and Sasha Gilenson, Evolven's co-founder and CEO. Dave Chivers is VP and CIO with VSE Corporation, a U.S. government contractor that provides engineering, logistics, support, supply chain management, sustainment, foreign military sales, management sciences, information technology, energy and environment support, and facilities management. Dave brings more than 27 years of experience leading technology operations across complex organizations and is responsible for overseeing all development and maintenance of VSE's IT infrastructure. Hi Dave, glad to have you here.
Here, thank you.
Okay, great. So, Sasha Gilenson is Evolven's founder and CEO. Sasha was the top guru in quality at Mercury and has advised numerous Fortune 500 companies on technology and process optimization. Hello, Sasha. How are you doing today?
Doing well. Thank you, Martin.
Great. So, before we begin, let's welcome all the attendees and thank you for joining us. This should be very exciting. Now, let's quickly go over the agenda for today's session. Sasha will explain how IT operations analytics can take on chronic change and configuration challenges. Then Dave will share his story of having implemented Evolven at VSE. And then Sasha will continue with a brief demo of the Evolven product. So let's get started. Sasha, I'm going to pass this over to you.
Thank you, Martin. All right. So I would like to start with an old picture. And this is kind of telephony that you only know from books and the pictures. You know, not so long ago, telecommunications were not most effective, cheap, and high quality. And I draw this picture because I feel that it kind of represents what we have right now in IT. You know, something is definitely broken. And for many years, we see annually in newspapers big news about the outages caused by various reasons related to the changes made in the providers, vendors, manufacturers' IT environment. And the names are changing. You know, the new companies, new type of companies now dominate this type of news, but the content of the news is the same. There is an outage, you know, Facebook is down, there is data deleted, there is massive failure of the system, it's all the same. Now, even recently, in this year MIT CIO Symposium, CIOs and other executives, IT executives, revealed their biggest information technology issue. And here you can see actually the picture of the CTO of Fidelity that talks about the velocity of the change that still represents a major challenge for his organization, and I think that's representative of any organization, IT organization in the world. And just look at the explanations, you know, again, of some of the recent major issues. That's, for example, explanation of the Facebook outage back 2 years ago. We made a change to persistent code configuration value. We made a change to the configuration. Similarly, you know, a couple of years ago, update on Amazon problem. They speak about the data that was the state data that was deleted by maintenance process manually by one of very small number of developers who had access to the production environment, and the developer didn't realize what he was doing. He didn't realize the mistake. Google outage, Google applications outage. Again, there was a certain issue with automatic system generating configuration, incorrect configuration. There was a change in configuration that caused that essentially caused the outage, and that's the fresh one from this year. So, you probably, many of you heard this famous famous quote from Donald Rumsfeld that says something like this. It's like, it's very difficult to read, but it makes a lot of sense. There are known, there are things we know. We also know there are known unknowns. That is to say, we know there are some things we do not know. But there are also unknowns. The ones we don't know. And it is the later categories that tend to be the difficult ones. Now, this quote led to many jokes on Rumsfeld's expense, but I would like to say that he was right. We indeed suffer from unknown unknowns, and particularly in IT. Like, if we look at the chronic changing configuration management challenges, again, of the last 15 years, the ones that led to this issue dominating the newspapers, what we see? We see, first of all, complexity of the environment, a huge complexity, and complexity of the details. You have heterogeneous environments, starting from physical, virtual cloud, running different layers of the software, infrastructure, middleware, applications, each component coming with tons and tons of content and configuration attributes, which can actually change the way the system behaves. Just to give you the sense of the complexity, something like operating system, like Windows operating system, can have between 1,500 and 2,500 parameters. Now you go up the stack, database servers will have about 3,000 to 4,000 configuration parameters. Up the stack, something like application server, IBM WebSphere has about 16,000 configuration parameters, Oracle WebLogic 60,000 configuration parameters. I mean, like, imagine amount of unknowns hiding in this 60,000 configuration parameters. And it's not only that you have huge amount of information, but it's also changing all the time. The pace of change increased drastically in the last 10 years, I would say, with continuous integration, deployment automation, other methods that actually enable agile change, things changing on the daily basis. We have customers that are changing their environments, deploying the changes in infrastructure, in application on hourly basis. And with that, this information is still viewed by different teams in very siloed manner. You will ask every team, they will have their own way of looking at the data. They will look only into their data using their own methods and tools. And this actually is a big data problem. The unknowns problem is a big data problem. There is so much information. There is a huge volume of information changing with huge velocity, and this data has huge variety, which is a big data. And once you have big data and not a good way to handle the big data, you will have this unknowns that are the most dangerous. And traditional tools were not designed to deal with today's challenges. I mean, if you look at the classic change configuration management tools like CMDB, configuration management databases, or CMS, even configuration management systems, they all provide information from bird's eye view. They do a very important job of mapping a data center, providing a strategic impact map of the data center, but they don't get to this resolution of all this detail, of all this unknowns, of all this 60,000 parameters hiding somewhere there in one component. And if you look at the tools that are focusing on the processing, on workflow automation, for example, tools like Service Desk, again, very important tools, and they are designed to ensure that process is in place and followed. But let's take a change, change management process. The Service Desk will support change request initiation, review, approval. But what happens when change is actually implemented in production environment? Who knows what was done as a result of the change? And you remember this example, this explanation from Facebook, from Google, from Amazon. I mean, it was someone's mistake. It was result of an approved change. That what this result, that what was the details of the change were unknown. Now, if you do start to look into ways to collect this information, and there are some compliance tools or in-house tools that start to collect this complex and detailed information, you just get lost in the noise. Just having information is not enough. I mean, because it's too much, which is not useful anyway. So to deal with the big data, a new approach is needed. And what is this approach? To deal with the big data, you need analytics. And to deal with the IT operations data, you need IT operations analytics. And what is the analytics? By definition of Gartner, it's a set of technologies or services that collect, store, present, and perform deductive and inductive inferences about large volumes of IT operations data. And this is very essential. Analytics are not data mining tools. They are not business intelligence tools. Analytics is about automated way to look into the information, to the bounded volumes of the information, and infer some actionable, some useful insights. And IT operations analytics, it's about the big data and analytics methods tuned and used within IT domain. So what are the types of ITOA, IT operations analytics? Well, you have predictive analytics that essentially help you to predict that when an error will happen, when an issue will happen before this issue actually takes place. There are descriptive analytics that actually help to identify a root cause of particular problems. These analytics could be based on some heuristic algorithms, some heuristic methods, and some statistic analysis. There are different types of this algorithm, from unstructured text, indexing, search, and inference, to statistical pattern discovery, to multidimensional analysis, actually combining certain methods, complex operations, event processing, and so on. But it's a new developing area, and so there's a variety of the methods and not prevailing method yet. But the important point is that, the space itself with all the different types of the tools and technologies and services is actually gaining serious momentum. What you see here is a hype cycle for IT operations management, the famous curve produced by Gartner. And, there are, all these different stages in the life cycle of each technology, from going to the peak of inflated expectations through disillusionment, to slope of enlightenment, and actually plateau of productivity. And IT operations analytics are on the rise. They are actually rising to the peak of inflated expectations, so they are becoming, a mainstream. And what's important also, that expectation is that this will happen really fast. Gartner expects this to happen from 2 to 5, in a period of from 2 to 5 years. And recently, Gartner made even more bold predictions that we have taken a position that by 2018, we're taking now in 4 years, a quarter, 25% of global 2,000 organizations will have deployed an IT operations analytics platform. Will be taking data feeds from a variety of systems, and that will be up from about 2% of the organizations that use it today. So 12 times more in 4 years. So the reasons for analytics being on the rise, maturing very rapidly, and being perceived as having, really high strategic expected benefit, is that you need to find a way to deal with this complexity and agility. You need to find a way to find effectively root causes of IT performance, availability, stability issues. You need to assess the relative impact when multiple causes are involved, and you need to be able to analyze service costs and predict actually performance and availability impacting events. Now, we in Evolven take, I would say, a pretty unique approach in the overall spectrum of IT operation analytics technology. We believe that one of the major sources of the stability, performance, security, and other types of the issues is a change, right? Is this unknown that Ramsey was talking about? This is a source of the problem. If nothing changes, your environment, most probably, unless there will be hardware failure, will be working. And so we believe that the analytics should actually take this change as a source of analysis, and look on all of the data on performance, availability, machine and other type of data through this prism, through this context of the change, doing a top-down analysis, rather than doing reverse engineering and trying to understand from hardware metrics, from transaction metrics and others, what actually caused them to change, what actually caused them to drop, what caused the potential issue, what causes a peak in the CPU. When in many cases, again, the reason will be the change, and we can have this information proactively. So what we do in Evolven, we actually implement an analytics engine on top of the variety of the data sources. The primary data source, the unique data source that we are collecting on our own is a change and configuration information. Essentially, we have a technology that crawls the environment and collects end-to-end information about the environment from application down to the infrastructure, about the configuration and content of each of the components at the most granular level. The 1,500 to 2,500 parameters of operating system will pick them. This database server configuration, 3,000 to 4,000 parameters, including all the schema configurations, stored procedures will pick them. This application server, 60,000 web logic parameters, will collect them, and will collect also information of the applications running on top of this web logic, and so on. So this whole stack will be collecting information in the great detail, and will blend this information with APM, with logs, with deployment automation data, with service-based data, with CMDB, again, to be able to identify those changes and those differences, those inconsistencies, anomalies that either cause a root, either were a root cause of the issue you are investigating, or could be potentially harmful for the stability, performance, and also security of your environment. And this analytics, this inference that we do based on all this data includes a number of algorithms. So the statistic algorithm, heuristic algorithm, looking at the dimension of the time, over time, looking at this information across environments, leveraging the knowledge base that we provide with our technology, and knowledge base assessing potential impact and significance of each of the configuration parameters in common technologies. All this information together helps us to prioritize, again, the changes and differences that are important in terms of the actual impact or potential impact to the stability of your system. So how this technology is typically used by our customers? Well, there are a variety of the scenarios where this technology is applied, but we see consistently the 4 major use cases that every organization is applying consistently time after time. And the most basic of them is reactive, cutting incident investigation time. We observed results where the clients were able to cut 50% of their mean time to resolution by using Evolven. And just, simple examples of type of the issues where we can help. For example, we had the situation when deployment changed permissions of the file, so nobody knew about this. An application started to fail when accessing this file. And it's a complex application, there are tons of files, so it took 12 hours to get down to the, to the reason of the issue by actually eventually manually going and verifying environment file by file, something that we were able to do in 2 minutes. But the information that could be used to predict the problem, or to at least, to warn our IT operations that something doesn't happen, before it actually happens. This information is available. You don't really need to use it just for incident investigation when an incident is there. Like example could be that once you deploy a new release, an upgrade, a patch, and so on, you can actually analyze all the changes produced as a result of this release, patch, and upgrade, and identify those that are either inconsistent or unexpected or potentially dangerous, again, before the release is the environment turned live and you experience the problem with this release. It both helps to avoid the problems and also helps to accelerate time to market, accelerate releases. And again, a very simple example, automated deployment didn't succeed to copy just a file of one of target servers because this was a DLL and it was still open at the moment of the copy. And that caused an intermittent problem when users were logging onto the server that was partially updated. Again, go and figure this one DLL file, you know, in the space of thousands and thousands of other files existing on multiple servers. Now, the risk of change also frequently could be avoided when the change, you know, undesired, unauthorized change, unexpected change is detected in advance and reported in advance. And again, you know, a simple example, during maintenance, DBA as part, you know, of activities just mechanically re-index the table. This new index caused a slowdown, but no one was aware of the change. I mean, it was never documented. It's part of larger allowed change of database maintenance. So we see a very significant drop in number of incidents as soon as you can start to monitor proactively, to look proactively into changes that happen, you know, happen in your environment, the actual changes that happen in your environment. And then the kind of ultimate proactive case is maintaining consistency of the environment on an ongoing basis, ensuring that your production is aligned with your pre-production, your DR is aligned with your production, your test is aligned with your acceptance, and so on. And also within the environment, the cluster servers are configured in a similar way, the load balance services you know, are appearing the same. And again, a very typical example that we see is that disaster recovery servers have a Windows automated update turned on, and this same update is turned off in the production environment, and then very quickly there is a significant discrepancy in configuration between production and disaster recovery, meaning that, you know, when you fall back to disaster recovery, maybe working, maybe not. I mean, nobody ever, you know, checked it into this configuration. So the upside also of maintaining consistency is not just, again, avoiding the problem, it's also a significant decrease in environment management costs. So we see, you know, different types of organizations applying Evolven, you know, in different use cases, but all having, you know, significant and benefits produced in pretty short period of time. Like we have large banks that reduce investigation time on average from hours and days for a critical incident, for P1 incidents to minutes. And how they do this? So the production support, their Tier 2 and Tier 3 of production support, they automatically use Evolven to automatically collect detailed configuration across the entire production environment, applications to infrastructure. They capture, they essentially mark, you know, the state of working configuration as a golden, you know, called the quote-unquote golden baseline. And then where there is an issue, they just compare a non-working environment, either with similar working one or with this golden baseline to see if there are any discrepancies that can explain the issue they are investigating. We also have another customer that actually went from a number of major incidents per month to 0 major incidents caused by changes over 12 months. And again, the operations team was actually tracking there with Evolven automatically all the changes to production environment. So we're, again, using Evolven to analyze their consistency across the service. So we're assured that the changes are distributed equally. They also were producing and reviewing daily reports of critical changes. So they were looking for unplanned, unauthorized, unexplainable activities. And then, as a last step, they were also comparing their production, pre-production environment after releases to ensure that all these automatic deployments were executed correctly. And again, they don't have any unexpected changes in their environment. Again, from a number of major incidents per month to 0 on the span, you know, of a year. We also have the service providers that managed to cut their release time by 35% implementing Evolven. That was a different group of specialists actually using Evolven. More application owners, release managers, application support. And what they were doing, they were comparing their production infrastructure and production application infrastructure with a certain golden baseline, a certain expected configuration to ensure that before they run the application deployment, all prerequisites are in place. And we're also the follow-up the deployment to compare pre-production and production to ensure that whatever was deployed, it was deployed as it was tested. There is no such thing as it works in testing, it doesn't work in production. And after that, they were monitoring for unique drifts in production, so things that bypass pre-production environment, and were capturing this and reporting them back to pre-production, so that they were ensuring that even if certain change happens just in production, it's captured and brought back to test environment so that it will be sufficiently representative for testing for the next test cycle. So again, a number of ways. There is a number of ways to use this innovative technology, but the bottom line is the same. You cut the release time, you reduce the amount of incidents, and for those incidents, that still happen, you can significantly cut mean time to resolution. And at this point, I will pass the baton to Dave, that can actually tell you, to the real customer, that can tell you from his experience, how Evolven works, what kind of benefits Evolven produce for his organization.
Sash, thank you very much. I've been with VSE for 15 years, and VSE has been around since 1959. We are a publicly owned company. As mentioned earlier, VSE is a broadly diversified company, but we basically bring all that into four major groups within our company. And those groups are our supply chain management group, our federal group, our international group for all of our full military sales and stuff that we do, plus our IT, energy, and management consulting group. VSE here at headquarters in Alexandria, Virginia, is ultimately responsible for the entire infrastructure worldwide for all data and management of that data wherever it may be in the world. So we're a pretty good sized company. We've got like 27 offices around the United States and many overseas. The things that I want to go over today are who was VSE, how were we designed prior to us even buying Evolven, some of the challenges that VSE was facing at the time, and how did Evolven address some of those challenges that we had. And then I'm going to close it up with some of the benefits and how we got our return on investment with buying Evolven. Prior to using Evolven, a couple years ago, VSE was still in our former headquarters, and we were in that building for 48 years, quite a long time to be in one spot. So it was time for us to move and upgrade. So it was that was a challenge all in itself. And we grew from an old mainframe type many years ago to, at that time, a mixture of physical servers and virtual servers. And we, even at that point, we were running over 350 servers just in our main data center with just under a petabyte of data sitting there on all those servers. We wanted to take advantage of this move and upgrade our data center and modernize it, but we also needed some other types of support, for configuration management and change management, and that was one of the reasons why we went out on the market, did some research, and came across Evolven as a tool that we could potentially use to help us do this move and continue forward. So some of the challenges that we were facing was, well, one, we are a public company, and as a government contractor, we have to comply with Sarbanes-Oxley Act. If you are a public company, and there's a lot of work you have to do to to prove when you get audited every year to show that your data is intact, the integrity is there, and that there's no one manipulating your data, so that we can report and to our stockholders that this is real information that's being put on the street. We're also an ISO registered company, so we also have all that audits that go along with that. And I don't know if you're familiar with FISMA, which is the Federal Information Security Management Act, but as a federal contractor with government data on our network, we have to comply with all security management regulations that the federal government has. So there's a lot involved in putting one of those together, just in a sense certifying your network that you comply. The other challenge is, obviously, we want to, moving that data center. Well, we took advantage of the move and built a completely brand new data center, entire new infrastructure, everything. And then we had to move all the services and that data off of the old network over to the new network. And of course, we wanted to then have something to help manage all that information and all those services after we moved. And how did Evolven help us with these challenges? Well, it provided us the tool, for one, to handle all the audits and compliance I talked about as a publicly owned company. One of the toughest challenges I had with an auditor at one point was, they were asking if, change management, what changes did you do to your application, especially the financial application? And it's easy to show that I did changes, but one of them, that one application we had, we made no changes to the application that entire year. There was no upgrades, no patches, no security changes, nothing needed to be changed on that application that particular year, and it was very difficult to prove that nothing changed. Evolven was one of the products that didn't even realize it when we bought it that it could use it for that, but went in, showed it to them, and said, look, I'll compare it. Here it is. You can see nothing's changed. There was no requirement to change it, and the data and everything on it is intact. It made it very easy for me to prove that I didn't modify something. Of course, during our move, we were moving from some of those physicals to a full virtual network. That in itself is a challenge. But again, Evolven was there as a tool that we use to help ensure that everything that was on the old data center is now on the new data center, even though it went from a physical servers, for every service, to virtual servers that we had here at the new data center. And of course, it's going to manage and supports all of our releases and controls that so that we can monitor and make sure that everything stays compliant. Especially with our FISMA, we have to ensure that everything is where it's supposed to be with the newest releases of any security patches and things like that. The other thing that it provided us is visibility into our entire application stack, and that goes from anything from the application itself to the database to any middleware you may have, our virtualization layer, and including the hardware. So it gives us a complete picture of everything, and it helps us analyze and maintain that information so that we know what's going on in infrastructure. We know if anything changes. We know if we need to change it even. And on top of that, we needed something that was easy because I have a very small staff supporting this entire infrastructure. So we needed something that was easy to use with minimal labor and time to put it in. And Evolven was able to do that and provide us a very rich, presentation type dashboard to show us what we needed to know, not all the millions amount of data that it was actually collecting. It was just the facts that we needed, and analyze it. It helps us continue forward. So it truly addressed a lot of the challenges that we had. Now, some of the benefits, I'll give you an example. I said how easy it was to install and maintain it. You can see here that we installed Evolven in March, or beginning of March of 2012, and at the end of April 2012, so it was a little over a month after we installed it that we did our data move, and it was more of a failover from one data center to another. Evolven definitely helped support us in that, and that was a very risky thing for us to do, and we had zero data loss and zero downtime to our users. So that in itself, making sure that the company had no downtime whatsoever was a significant value, and Evolven helped us do that. It also provides an outstanding insight to our complete data center, and what I mean by that is the old data center that we moved from now is our DR site. We took that, upgraded all the infrastructure that was there, moved that out of the old building, put it in another one, and now that is our disaster recovery site. So Evolven is another tool, another piece that we use on a regular basis to ensure that everything we have here in our production data center is indeed replicated and is the same over in our disaster recovery data center. And that's part of our disaster recovery plan and continuity of operation plan to be able to prove and validate that if, and we have tested it, if we ever had to fail over any service or an entire infrastructure, we know with great confidence that we're going to be able to do that with minimal or no loss of services. Some of the other things that we've done since we've had it, and I truly mean this, what used to take us hours now takes minutes. It truly reduces the time it takes to find to the resolution of what the problem was, come up with a resolution. We had a server that just one day just could not figure out why this thing was not running. my engineer went into Evolven and said, "Show me what's changed in this thing. What has happened?" And there was one simple little DLL that didn't get updated, and he goes, "Oh, well, this is what it is." But then the proper DLL came right back up. And if we hadn't had Evolven at the time, I think that would have probably taken hours, and I know for a fact it would have taken those hours to figure out what that one little DLL was that didn't get updated properly. So that in itself, it definitely helped pay for itself just by using that. It also helps me in everything I do for our security, because we need to make sure that we know what's being changed. And if somebody ever came in from outside or whatever and tried to corrupt or change or hack or do something to our infrastructure, actually, believe it or not, Evolven's going to help identify that and let us know. So it's an added tool to our securities that we have here in our data center. And yes, at the end of the day, it definitely helps us identify any root causes that we may have, or any type of issues. It triggers itself, it detects it, it lets us know, and it's anything from a working environment to a non-working environment. What's going on? Why aren't these two, the same? What's going? Why is it not happening? Evolven is definitely a tool that we have used and it reduces our time to do that. So at the end of the day, we've had it for a few years now, and I don't think at this point in time I'll ever let it go. It's definitely a tool that my people appreciate to have. It makes their job a lot easier, and this way I know I can support my users here at VSE.
All right. So right now, what you are supposed to see is a web browser with a web interface of Evolven technology. Right now, we are in the inventory module, which actually visualizes all this granular detail of configuration and context for each environment component that we are collecting. So on the left side, we see that there is an environment, a virtual server called VM45 Demo F1P1 that actually runs a Windows operating system, Microsoft SQL Server that again runs a number of databases, IAS, Microsoft Web Server with a number of websites, a number of applications, web applications under this website. So I spoke about 1,500, 2,500 of configuration parameters just on Windows. So yeah, if we look, at all the etc files, at all the INI files that are there, and into the hardware configuration, things like network, disk, memory, network configuration, processor, and so on, software configuration, all the drivers and install components, and so on, kernel configuration, all these parameters that define actually how the core of Windows, how the kernel is working. You will have this, 1,500 parameters. Now, what is important that all this information is collected automatically. As soon as Evolven collector is scanning the server, in this case, we're scanning this Demo F1P1 server, all this information is extracted automatically and dynamically. There are new INI files that will be picked out automatically. There will be new APC files picked out automatically. And it will be resolved, this information will be resolved down to individual parameters, as you can see there. You can see here, meaning that if there is a change or a mismatch, we'll recognize it at this level, not the level you have a mismatch in configuration files, but here is a specific parameter that was changed, was touched, at this time by this person. Now, what's also important to show that for common technologies, as I mentioned, operating system, databases, messaging software, application servers, web servers, and so on, we provide out-of-the-box knowledge base that consolidates industry experience, of operating system administrators, DBAs, and so on what is actually potential impact of each of the parameters. So like here in the examples I'm showing now, if you look into the data execution prevention configuration parameters of Windows, again, those of you that are related to system administration will know these are extremely critical parameters, and that you will see with red thunderbolt in the severity column, and they can impact, if you change them incorrectly, they can actually impact the ability of Windows to run. And then you will see that in impact column of application startup ability, this kind of impact category. And that's exactly what we provide. How critical is this parameter in terms of its impact, and what kind of impact the change will create? Performance, functionality, security, startup ability, localization, and so on. The same level, the same granular details are collected again for database server, for SQL server, for IS, and so on. But what do we do with this information? It's a lot of information coming in, and that's where we need the analytics. So let's say that we have an issue in this server, the server that we just looked into the collected information, and that is let's say a performance issue. The easiest way to start then, you just you start search and you narrow down the scope of the investigation. You say, show me all the performance issues, and you can see that there is also autocomplete performance. And like out of this issue, out of the changes that we are right now investigating, only 4 out of the changes are related to performance. We can actually complete the search and see what kind of the changes are there. How can we see it effectively? We can apply automatic context algorithms that can understand what types of the changes were done, and we see that these are 2 changes in the web configuration file. Red means that they are pretty critical, and we can see what the changes are. Well, execution time was updated. That definitely can contribute to a performance problem. What is another one? Well, actually, someone updated a connection string, which you can see as the bottom part of the screen that I'm showing. So that definitely going to another database also could be obviously a source of performance issue. But let's say that there is a different type of the problem, no performance, not easy narrowing down. So let's go back to the initial scope. So what we can do, we can actually use analytics to automatically prioritize the changes in terms of their potential risk. What are the most risky changes that can actually cause my problem? So I initiate auto-analysis, and it breaks down the changes by the risk. And you see red, yellow, green, the obvious visualization of the risk. And these risks are calculated based on various dimensions that we calculate for each of the changes. Are the changes consistent? How frequently we see them? What is their impact in terms of the knowledge base? Are they authorized or not? And so on and so on. There are many various dimensions. Meshing all the dimensions together, you calculate the risk score for each of the change. And you can see that, well, I had a problem, and I can see that there is a critical, in terms of knowledge base problem, in application file that looks like an anomaly. And here, that's where you would do, we would suggest you to start your investigation. So being able to automatically prioritize the changes, being able to automatically identify their context, being able to narrow down very easily the search, with the search, the area of investigation, helps you to get to the root cause very easily. But again, you could be proactive. The same information is there. And actually, before the problem happens, you can go and compare multiple environments and see, I have my P1 environment, my production environment, but is my production environment actually aligned with the testing environment once I deploy a change? And we see, well, actually, it's not so aligned. There are numerous changes in my environment of various, again, various type of risk. And if I will break them down by the type of the environment, I will see that actually there are differences at web server level, at the SQL server level, and applications running under them, but also the major part is within the operating system. And then we can see what kind of differences are there. And we see that there are differences in operating system configuration and also in some files that are important for Windows. Again, in a few clicks, you are able to take a significant amount of information, 200 differences in this case, and very quickly understand what differences are there, which one are important to investigate, and which are less critical in terms of their potential impact. So if we will actually summarize what is different about Evolven, one is the ability to produce those insights. What are the changes? What are the differences that actually can threaten stability of your IT environment? It's a single point of view. You saw across the end-to-end environment, databases, application middleware, applications, operating systems. You can see a single point of view that is easy to understand and based on everything that matters. Entire environment down to the most granular level of configuration parameters collected automatically. And what is most important, this implementation, getting this information, getting this analytics insight, to be done really in minutes. We have, as well as on-premise technology, we have also software as a service delivery option that allows you to experience this, as I mentioned, in minutes. So to summarize, what we see is that IT operations are getting overwhelmed by the big data, by all this information collected, starting from event logs, from performance and application data, to change and configuration information. And new tools are needed to deal with this problem, with the big data problem. IT operational analytics as an answer, as a new tool dealing with the big data could be a game changer, could get results that is impossible to get with the traditional tools and traditional processes. And what we do as Evolven, we provide here a unique approach by looking to blended data sources, blended analytics, but with specific prism of change, which is a major source of instability in any IT organization. Thank you. Martin, all yours.
Okay, thank you very much, Sasha. That was great. Well, thank you very much. Okay, I'd like to all thank you for taking the time to join us on this session. I personally found this very interesting. Feel free to drop us a line with any questions or feedback, or contact us to schedule a one-on-one session, as well as sign up for an Evolven trial. And stay up to date on the latest about IT operations analytics on the I2A Landscape Twitter channel. So on behalf of all of us, I want to thank you for taking the time to join us today. Thanks again, Dave and Sasha.
Thank you.
Thank you, Martin.